Most nights, the moon quietly rises and disappears without anyone thinking twice about it. But sometimes, it puts on a show so rare and beautiful that entire crowds stop and stare at the sky. The moon can turn blood red, block out the sun, create glowing rings in the sky, and even help create rainbows in the middle of the night. From once-in-a-lifetime eclipses to breathtaking lunar illusions, these are the most beautiful moon events you have to see. Welcome to Terronix. If you enjoy incredible nature content like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Let's begin. For one night, the moon can turn completely red. What starts as a normal full moon slowly changes as Earth's shadow begins covering it. A dark bite appears on one side, and over time, the entire moon transforms into a deep red sphere hanging in the sky. This happens during a total lunar eclipse when Earth moves directly between the sun and the moon. Sunlight bends through Earth's atmosphere and filters red light onto the lunar surface. The result looks almost supernatural. In ancient civilizations, blood moons often terrified entire populations. And even today, seeing the moon completely change color in real time feels unreal. The moon can literally shut off the sun. During a total solar eclipse, daylight begins fading in the middle of the afternoon, temperatures drop, birds stop singing. Then the sun becomes a black circle surrounded by glowing white light. This happens when the moon perfectly moves between Earth and the sun while appearing almost exactly the same size in our sky. Only people standing inside a very narrow path can witness totality. Some eclipse chasers travel the world for just a few minutes of this experience, and many people who witness totality describe it as the most beautiful thing they've ever seen. Now imagine combining a blood moon with a supermoon. A giant bright full moon rises larger than normal and begins turning darker and redder as Earth's shadow moves across it. The moon appears bigger because it's closer to Earth than usual. Then the eclipse transforms it into a massive glowing red orb. These events are far rarer than normal eclipses because multiple astronomical conditions have to align perfectly. When they happen, they create some of the most photographed moon images in history. It looks like something straight out of science fiction. Some of the biggest moons you've ever seen may not actually be as large as they appear. A supermoon rising over a city skyline or mountain range can look absolutely massive. It often glows orange as it climbs through the horizon, appearing huge behind buildings, trees, and landmarks. Supermoons happen when a full moon reaches its closest point to Earth during orbit, making it appear brighter and slightly larger than normal. But your brain also helps create the illusion. The famous moon illusion makes the moon appear even bigger near the horizon, and that combination creates some of the most breathtaking moon footage on Earth. Sometimes the moon doesn't block the sun completely, and the result might look even stranger. During an annular solar eclipse, the moon moves in front of the sun, but appears slightly too small to fully cover it. That leaves a glowing ring of fire surrounding the dark moon. The sky dims, but never becomes fully dark like a total eclipse. The effect lasts only a short time and creates one of the most recognizable visuals in astronomy. It looks like a giant burning eye staring back at Earth. Sometimes the sky shows something that seems impossible. During a rare event called a selenalion, the sun and an eclipsed blood moon can appear above the horizon at the same time. One side of the sky glows with sunrise or sunset, while the opposite side holds a dim red moon hanging low in the atmosphere. This happens because Earth's atmosphere bends light near the horizon, lifting both objects just enough for us to see them together. Geometrically, they should be opposite each other, but from the ground, it can look like the sun and a blood moon are sharing the sky at once. Every 18.6 years, the moon starts rising and setting in places that feel unusual. This is called a major lunar standstill. Instead of following its normal range across the horizon, the moon reaches its most extreme northern and southern positions. To the naked eye, it may look like the moon is rising far too high, way too low, or from a strange part of the landscape. For ancient cultures that track the sky carefully, this cycle may have been deeply important. Today, it creates rare moonrise alignments over monuments, mountains, coastlines, and open horizons. It makes the moon feel less like a daily object and more like a hidden clock in the sky. A rainbow can appear at night, made entirely from moonlight. This is called a moonbow, and it happens when bright moonlight passes through mist, spray, or falling rain. To the human eye, it often looks pale, silver, or ghostly white because our eyes struggle to see color in low light, but long exposure cameras can reveal the hidden colors, turning the night sky into a soft glowing arc. Moonbows are often seen near waterfalls, sea spray, and dark wet landscapes under a bright full moon. It feels like nature took something familiar from daytime and quietly recreated it in the dark. The harvest moon is more than just a pretty name. It is the full moon closest to the autumn equinox, and for centuries, it helped people work after sunset. Instead of rising much later each night like most full moons, the harvest moon rises at nearly the same time for several evenings in a row. That gave farmers extra light during one of the busiest seasons of the year. Visually, it often appears warm, golden, and low on the horizon, rising over fields, forests, barns, and city skylines. It is one of the few moon events where beauty, history, and human life all connect. Sometimes the dark side of the moon is lit by Earth itself. On clear twilight evenings, a thin crescent moon can appear with the rest of its disk glowing faintly beside it. This soft ghostly light is called Earthshine. It happens when sunlight reflects off Earth, travels to the moon, lights up the moon's night side, and then reflects back to our eyes. The effect is subtle but incredibly beautiful. It makes the moon look like a delicate silver outline floating in blue twilight, and it reminds us that Earth is not just a planet beneath us, it is also part of the moon's light. Sometimes the moon appears with the brightest planet in the sky right beside it. A thin crescent hangs in the blue glow of twilight while Venus shines nearby like a tiny white flame. This happens because the moon moves quickly across our sky and regularly passes near the planets from our point of view. But when it meets Venus, the scene becomes especially beautiful because Venus is so bright. The two objects can look almost perfectly placed together, floating above rooftops, trees, mountains, or ocean horizons. It is simple, clean, and one of the easiest moon events to recognize with the naked eye. Sometimes the moon does not rise alone. It appears as part of a larger sky arrangement surrounded by bright planets like Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, or Mercury. A slim crescent may sit low on the horizon while the planets form a triangle, diagonal line, or loose pattern around it. These objects are not actually close together in space. They only appear close from Earth because of our viewing angle. But visually, it can look like the sky arranged itself on purpose. For photographers, these moments are perfect because the crescent moon gives the entire scene shape, balance, and scale. An entire planet can disappear behind the edge of the moon. During a lunar occultation of Venus, the planet shines like a tiny bead near the moon's curved edge. Then, in a single moment, it vanishes completely. This happens because the moon moves across the sky and temporarily blocks Venus from our view. The event is only visible from certain parts of Earth, making it feel even more rare. What makes it so striking is that you can actually sense the moon moving. It stops being just a glowing object in the sky and becomes a massive world passing in front of another one. A bright planet can blink out behind the moon like someone switched it off. During an occultation of Mars or Jupiter, the planet sits beside the lunar edge and then suddenly disappears. Later, it reappears from the other side. With Mars, the contrast can be especially beautiful because of its reddish color. With Jupiter, the brightness makes the moment easy to spot through binoculars or a telescope. These events do not happen often from the same location, so when one lines up, it feels like watching a secret piece of clockwork in the solar system. The moon can drift beside one of the prettiest star clusters in the sky. The Pleiades, often called the Seven Sisters, appear as a tiny blue-white cluster of stars. When the moon passes nearby, the pairing looks like a natural portrait. A thin crescent beside the Pleiades can be especially beautiful because the moon is not bright enough to wash out the stars completely. In dark skies, the cluster looks like a small spray of diamonds next to the lunar glow. It is not loud or dramatic like an eclipse, but it may be one of the most elegant moon scenes you can see. A star can vanish at the edge of the moon with no warning at all. During a lunar occultation of a bright star, the moon slowly moves across the sky until its dark edge touches a tiny point of light. Then the star disappears instantly, almost like someone cut the sky with a blade. There is no fade out because stars are so far away that they appear as tiny points. 1 second it is there, and the next it is gone. Later, it reappears from the other side of the moon. It is one of the cleanest ways to actually see the moon moving through space. The moon can wear a glowing ring so large it fills a huge part of the sky. This is called a moon halo, and it happens when moonlight passes through tiny ice crystals high in the atmosphere. A bright full moon sits in the center, while a pale circle stretches around it, often looking ghostly, cold, and almost supernatural. Many people once believed moon halos were signs that weather was changing, and sometimes they were right, because the thin clouds that create them can arrive before storms. It turns an ordinary moonlit night into something mysterious. Sometimes the moon creates colored rings that look painted into the clouds. This is called a lunar corona. Unlike a large moon halo, a corona forms much closer to the moon, with tight rings of soft red, blue, green, or purple light. It happens when moonlight bends around tiny droplets or ice particles in thin clouds. The effect can shift from moment to moment as the clouds move. 1 minute, the moon looks normal. Then suddenly it is surrounded by glowing pastel colors. It feels less like weather and more like a hidden light show in the sky. Sometimes the moon rises already damaged by Earth's shadow. During a partial lunar eclipse at moonrise or moonset, the moon can appear low, orange, and strangely incomplete. One side looks darkened, dimmed, or bitten away as it climbs through the haze near the horizon. Because the moon is low, buildings, trees, mountains, or ocean lines can make it look even more dramatic. A partial eclipse may not transform the whole moon like a total eclipse, but when it happens near the horizon, it becomes far more cinematic. It looks like the moon is arriving from another world. The winter full moon can stay in the sky longer than almost any other full moon of the year. Often called the long night moon, it rises near the December solstice, when nights in the northern hemisphere are at their longest. Because the moon takes the opposite path of the low winter sun, it climbs high and remains visible for hours. Over snow, mountains, frozen lakes, or cold forests, it creates one of the most peaceful moon scenes of the entire year. It is not explosive like an eclipse, but it has a quiet power that feels ancient. The moon does not actually get bigger near the horizon, but your brain believes it does. This is called the moon illusion. When a full moon rises behind buildings, trees, mountains, or distant landmarks, it can look enormous. But if you photograph it and compare its size later, the moon is almost the same size as when it is high overhead. The difference is perception. Your brain uses the horizon and nearby objects as reference points, making the moon feel much larger than it really is. That is why some of the most breathtaking moon photos happen during moonrise. The moon itself has not changed, but the way we see it has. Humanity's biggest spacecraft can cross the face of the moon in less than a second. During an International Space Station lunar transit, the station appears as a tiny black silhouette racing across the moon's surface. With the right telescope or long lens, you can see the shape of its solar panels as it flashes across the craters. The timing has to be almost perfect, because the visible path on Earth can be only a few miles wide. Miss it by seconds, and it is gone. But when it works, it creates one of the most surreal moon images possible. Human technology passing in front of an ancient world. For a few hours, the moon can appear to write letters on its own surface. Near the first quarter phase, sunlight hits certain crater walls at just the right angle, creating bright shapes known as the lunar X and lunar V. These are not actual markings on the moon. They are temporary light patterns formed along the boundary between lunar day and night. Through binoculars or a small telescope, the shapes can suddenly stand out against the darker landscape. It is one of those moments where the moon stops looking like a simple gray disk and starts looking like a detailed alien world. The famous blue moon usually is not blue at all. Most of the time, it simply means an extra full moon that happens because our calendar does not line up perfectly with the moon's cycle. A lunar cycle lasts about 29.5 days, so every few years we get an extra full moon in a month or season. That is where the phrase "once in a blue moon" comes from. But in rare cases, the moon really can look blue when smoke, dust, or ash in the atmosphere scatters light in unusual ways. So the blue moon is mostly a calendar event, but its name is still one of the most famous in the night sky. The rough edge of the moon can turn a solar eclipse into a diamond ring. Just before or after totality, sunlight slips through valleys and low points along the moon's edge. Tiny flashes appear first, known as Bailey's beads. Then, for a brief moment, one bright point of sunlight remains beside the dark lunar disk, making the sun look like a glowing diamond ring. It lasts only seconds, but it is one of the most unforgettable sights in astronomy. The moon does not have a smooth edge, and during an eclipse, that rugged landscape creates one final burst of light before darkness takes over. Some moon events last for hours, others last less than a second, but all of them show the same thing. The moon is not just a pale object hanging in the night sky. It changes color, blocks the sun, creates illusions, lights the atmosphere, hides planets, and transforms ordinary landscapes into scenes people remember for the rest of their lives. Whether it is a blood moon rising over a city, a moonbow glowing above a waterfall, or a diamond ring eclipse flashing for one perfect moment, these events remind us that the sky is still full of things worth looking up for. If you enjoyed this video and want more incredible space and nature content like this, make sure to subscribe to Terronix and hit that like button. Thanks for watching,